So let's wrap up this segment with a picture of you on a Vespa.
Oh boy.
There's a picture of you circulating, about ready to get on a Vespa, and I happened to be on this trip. This was
You're
Barcelona.
taking the picture. When
I'm
in
the one taking the
reality,
picture.
you should probably be in this picture.
Right, yeah, but I was taking the picture with my grainy iPhone 1 maybe at the time.
You were the only one that had it.
I was the only one that had an iPhone. We can get to that in a second. But here you are about to get on the Vespa. This is Barcelona, Spain, and this is 2009. And if you remember, the day that this picture was taken was the day, I believe, that Michael Jackson passed away.
You are correct.
We learned about Michael Jackson's passing while we were on the beach in Barcelona. But walk me through this day.
So we're renting Vespas in this picture here, and what Frank fails to tell you, or he hasn't mentioned yet, and I'll take 50% of the credit for never riding a Vespa before, and Frank had never ridden a Vespa, and then a third musketeer of sorts, Paul Guterres, another friend of ours who was on the same trip, he was the only one that ridden a motorcycle. And
Right.
if anybody's been to Barcelona or most places in Europe where there's a lot of Vespas, well, I'll say it, I'm a single man.
Right.
There's a lot of cute women on Vespas in cute summer dresses, and it seems pretty easy. I've ridden a bicycle. Has to be the same, right? And so when somebody suggests that we rent Vespas to see Barcelona, I didn't want to be the person to hold us back and say, I've never ridden a Vespa. So I said, yeah, I've ridden one.
I lied too.
And come to find out, Frank
lied
was
too.
in a similar situation. And so shortly after this picture, Frank may recall, and it's etched in my mind, he proceeded to ramp his Vespa off the curb into the street. And the woman was like, you okay? And, Frank was like, oh, yeah, I haven't been on one in a while.
Oh, yeah. I give it too much gas.
Right. And so we proceeded to sort of drive on our way to the beach.
Right.
And we stopped to look at a paper map because back then, if you remember, there was no GPS.
No.
Frank was the only one with a mobile phone. He was living large with his iPhone.
Yeah.
Me and Paul didn't have phones. And so we stopped to look at a map. And Frank may or may not have had a slight collision with Mr. Paul and may or may not have taken off. I believe it was a mirror or a blinker.
Right. So the way that it went was like I was on it and it was like I didn't know how much gas to give. So I actually gave too much gas, ran into Paul's Vespa and broke a tail light on a rented Vespa. So I'm freaking out. I'm like, dude, we just rented this Vespa and I broke the damn tail light. How am I going to fix this?
Yep. And I remember calming Frank down and we said, well, let's just make our way to the beach. We'll get a Coca-Cola, which we did. Mm-hmm. And at that point, everybody was playing Michael Jackson everywhere. I remember being at the beach and we talked a little bit about, okay, we're fessing up. We've never been on a Vespa before. And so Paul's like mortified probably, but we grew up at interesting places. We're pretty resourceful.
Right.
And we said, let's go to Park Gall up there.
Up the hill.
Up the hill. And so we make our way up the hill to Park Gall, which for those of you who've been to Barcelona is a must-see.
Right.
And what was really fun and, almost unbridled fun, that we were taking a lot of back streets, we were gaining confidence riding our Vespas, and we had told ourselves,
keep going down, you'll eventually get to the coastline.
Well, but wait. We needed to find some super glue because we needed to repair the Vespa.
So we find a spot. And it's like, hey, guess what? They have super glue. Get the super glue, put it on the light, attach it back to the Vespa. Good as new.
We're on our way.
We
get to Park Gall.
We're not going to have to pay any insurance costs or anything.
We're living large.
Yes.
And so our confidence level's growing. And around that time, U2 was kicking off their 360 tour in Barcelona a couple days later. Uh-huh. And I had never been to the soccer stadium where the match was going to be. And so we said, why don't we take our Vespas?
Camp Nou, right?
Camp Nou. Why don't we take our Vespas and just sort of scope out the neighborhood and see where this concert's going to be at? And so I put my headphones on. The confidence level's high again. Frank's happy. Yeah. Vespa's repaired. We arrived there to just a blessing, quite honestly.
Right.
Which was U2 doing a sound check, in essence, a live concert. Uh-huh. And so at this point, one of us, I think, was saying, this is one of the best days of our life, right?
Right.
And right around that time, I think it might have been you with your iPhone. You're like, well, we need to get these Vespas back. Where is back? We said, well, we'll just go down.
Follow the coastline.
The beach is down there. The rental shop is down there. And so we proceed to leave. And I'll never forget, because it's etched in my mind, what happens next. it starts sprinkling in Barcelona, which those of you who've been to Barcelona, doesn't rain very often. So when it does, oil comes up off of the streets.
Get slick.
You add that into the recipe of most rental Vespas, not the best tires. And so if you can visually picture, Paul's in front because he's the most experienced Vespa rider. I'm in the middle, probably following 20 yards behind him. And then Frank's bringing up the rear. And so we're going down this hill, and I'll never forget saying, we're being blessed because it's sprinkling on us.
Yep.
And I go to hit the brakes, and I skid a little bit. And so I'm like, uh-oh, I need to stop before the bottom of the hill. And so I say, okay, let's see what happens. And so luckily I had never ridden a Vespa. So those of you that have ridden motorcycles and Vespas would probably be predisposed to put your arm down or your foot down. But I literally, it was like a cartoon. It was like a cartoon, Frank. I went down.
It's all a cartoon.
Like in one swell piece.
Right.
And hit and was skidding. I was wrecking.
So here's the horror, right? So I'll take it from there.
Please do.
So Greg is sliding down the hill. Paul is in the middle, and he's like, oh, snap. So he turns back to look behind him to see if I was all right, and he wipes out.
Yep.
Car's coming, he's wiped out. And then I'm the third one. I'm like, oh my God. They wiped. I'm the least experienced of the bunch. So I try to slow down, and I'm like, I'm going to take the Vespa and put it up on the curb. So I hit the gas just to get up on the curb. I hit it too hard, and I rammed the Vespa into a stone wall, jack up my hand. And then if you remember, at that point, we all dust ourselves off with, this isn't funny anymore, man.
Well,
This ain't funny anymore, man.
this is true, but let me add one little piece of recollection on my part, which
right.
could be verified by Paul.
Okay.
Frank was like, this ain't funny, man. I got a wife and kids at home. I don't want to have to call your dad saying you got killed in Barcelona. This ain't funny. They can come get these Vespas. We ain't taking them back.
Right. Yep. That's about right.
And so after cooler heads prevailed, we said, why don't we just go to the bottom of the street so we can figure out where we're at?
Right.
And again, for those of you that haven't ridden Vespas, don't try this at home.
Right.
But we slowly started getting confidence again.
Mm-hmm.
And they should have never let me lead because I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know where I was going. And before you know it, I find myself in a tunnel. And I'm
Wait, there's a
thinking,
precursor to that. Okay, so the three of us are we come to a stop, and you're in front, and so you are our official translator, right?
I had not studied
So
Spanish at that point.
yeah, and so you asked the cab driver, he was like, okay, which way back to Las Ramblas, right?
Yep.
And he was like, al derecho. And he was like, so Greg turns back and looks at it, he goes, yeah, let's go left. So we end up in a speed tunnel.
Speed tunnel.
Take it from there.
And so again, we're staggered. It's me in the front, because they got to keep an eye on me. And then it's Paul, and then Frank's in the back. And a good 20, 30 yards in between us. And when we exited the tunnel, we found ourselves on the highway, on the inner lane of a fast-moving highway. And of course, I'm, a little shaky. I had to put my, the handlebars back in place. And I'm like, I need to get off this highway. And we must have been going 50 miles an hour maybe.
Right.
And so I make my way over and I get off on the exit. And I'm at the top of the exit and I see Paul make his way over, get off on the exit. And then we see Frank stuck
I'm
on
blocked in
the
far
inner lane, and he's just going straight. And of course, we don't have cell phones. And we're saying, oh my God, Frank's going to kill us because he was the one that has the wife and kids. And now I'm thinking, how am I going to call Tess? This is not good.
Right.
And so me and Paul make our way to a bar.
Mm-hmm.
And we're frantically asking people, can we use your cell phone? Because cell phones weren't that prevalent back then.
Right.
And luckily we found a table of young ladies who said, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
And so we called Frank, and he had made his way back to the room.
Yep. Good thing that I spoke fluent Spanish, made way back to the room. And I'm thinking about it, I was like, hey, I'm relaxed. I don't know where you guys are at. What's this all about, right?
Yep.
And then we had a very cathartic dinner that night.
We did.
Like, talked about all of our deep stories and
Yeah.
near-death experiences. Because one thing that we failed to mention, there was a roundabout where I almost got taken out by a bus, if you remember. I had one leg sticking out, just trying to brace myself for impact because the bus is about to take me out in a roundabout. But anyways, an incredible experience. Right?
Incredible experience, and I, relive that experience often. And subsequently in Thailand, other places I've rented Vespas, and it's never been the same.
It's never been the same.
But I wouldn't have traded that experience for anything in the world.
Right.